Well, as you probably gathered after the video I did yesterday after qualifying, that I thought this race was going to be a complete bore and a walkover for Oscar Piastri. Just shows, doesn't it? Absolutely no idea. Well, I think in mitigation, can anybody have imagined that when a free gift like a safety car comes out on lap 7 of a race in which there's a limit on the number of laps you can do on each set of tyres anyway, that limit being 25, could anybody not have taken that free gift and thought it'd be better to stay out? I just never imagined that that would happen. And yet that is exactly what happened with the two McLarens. As a result, if you want to understand how Max Verstappen won this Qatar Grand Prix, putting aside his natural brilliance and the great job done by Red Bull-Honda anyway, but if you want to understand the strategy of how he won, it was basically that he then ran a one-stop strategy from whenever the safety car came in lap 10, a one-stop strategy, medium and then hard, whereas McLaren, the team with the best car, locked themselves into a two-stop strategy. They had to go medium, medium, hard, and that's how Max Verstappen won that Grand Prix. Of course, it was multiplied by a number of factors, i.e. that when Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris came in, they came out in traffic. Whereas Max came in from his first stop, he basically had a free track. And towards the end of the race, when he was supposed to be taking a second a lap out of Max Verstappen on the hard tyres, and on a free lap was doing half a second, he then got stuck behind Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, which happened to be on soft tyres, about 4/10 off the potential time for Oscar Piastri. So that effectively put an end to his challenge. Meanwhile, Lando Norris was stuck behind Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes for umpteen laps. Eventually, on the penultimate lap, Kimi ran wide and Lando moved past, actually moving up one position, which may or may not be important going into the Abu Dhabi finale now. But all of that was too late and none of it mattered. So what is the thinking behind McLaren keeping, first of all, Oscar Piastri out? Because Lando Norris made a very good point that he was in the box seat, the prime position, because he was behind Oscar. And if it was 50-50 and Oscar's going to stay out, why not bring Lando in, at least cover all bases? And from Lando's point of view, that would have been a better thing anyway, because it would have given him a new set of tyres and a different strategy from Oscar's. But McLaren didn't do that. And when challenged by that afterwards on the radio by Lando, the reply from Will Joseph was, well, that gives us now flexibility. All the other runners who came in now have lost their flexibility for later in the race. I don't really understand that, because if a safety car had come out towards the end, effectively everybody would have come in anyway. So what was the flexibility that was gained by McLaren in doing that? I think it was just freezing in the headlights. And it was quite telling, I thought, that when the safety car initially came out on lap 7, and this was as a result of Pierre Gasly and Nico Hülkenberg, had started on softs and was kind of scything his way through, trying to pass Pierre on the outside and Pierre running a bit wide, and then they both went off. Anyway, debris, safety car. Oscar said, as he was coming around to complete that lap, so what are we doing? Are we boxing? Are we staying out? And there was quite a pause. There was quite a delay. And just as Oscar was coming into the last corner, in other words, the last possible moment, they said, no, we're staying out, Oscar. And he stayed quiet after that. As I say, at this moment, given that McLaren were obviously looking at both options, the logical thing would have been to bring Lando in. And that, of course, comes under the heading of trying to run two number one drivers, both of whom are championship contenders, trying to keep the peace, trying to keep them all mates, and trying, therefore, not to split the strategies in any way that might result in any recriminations after the race. That's what that was all about. That would never happen in a team in which one driver dominates, i.e. Max Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda. And there was another example of this on lap 43, when Oscar Piastri, leading the race, came in for his set of hard tyres. Remember, each set was limited to 25 laps at this unique Grand Prix in that respect. Oscar came in from the lead and went out on a free track. And now in front of the race was Lando Norris, and right behind him was Max Verstappen, who was trying to run as close as he could without damaging the left front and therefore prolong the life of the hard tyre for as long as he possibly could. Did a really good job with that. But the logical thing then, if you wanted to maximise the chance of Oscar Piastri winning this Grand Prix, was to keep Lando then out for as long as possible, holding up Max, whilst Oscar, on a free track, blitzed it with purples, and in theory might have even caught Max towards the end of the race. But they didn't do that. 2 laps later, because Oscar had stopped, I think even to the surprise of Red Bull, they brought Lando in. And that was effectively the end of it. That left Max in the lead of the race on a set of hard tyres that he'd beautifully managed into the stint, running 2 or 3 seconds a lap slower than the potential, just over the 3 or 4 critical laps while the heat cycle built up, and then gradually was reducing the tyre management around the lap by lap almost, and he's getting quicker and quicker now as the race went on. Perfect tyre management by Max Verstappen, steered by GP on the pit wall as ever. Really, really good job of that. And then with Max leading the race, suddenly there was sort of 15 laps to go and Oscar was 14 seconds behind, had to catch him a second a lap. He was in traffic, he couldn't do it. And so it went away. And the desperation set in. This was a transmission to Lando at around this stage of the race when he said, when Will said, I think here he's referring to something that happened at turn 7. It wasn't really clear on the radio. Anyway, he said, "You've gone back to what you were doing before, Lando." And Lando in desperation said, "I'm trying, I just can't do it. I need more help here, you know." I mean, what is that? This is for a guy leading the World Championship in a very, very good race car, and he's in that state. To me, it's still staggering that McLaren got themselves into that situation, that Lando got himself into that situation. And just looking back now at that decision to bring him in shortly after Oscar, of course, the thinking was, from McLaren's point of view, Lando's still our best championship chance. We can't ruin his race now by keeping him out there. We got to bring him in. But of course, the other perspective is, Oscar Piastri had been quicker all weekend. He won the sprint race. He'd been on the pole. He had a very, very good chance of winning this Grand Prix. In many ways, McLaren then had to maximise their chance of doing that. But they didn't do that either because they had to worry about Lando. And that's, again, it's the whole two-driver thing. Daniel Ricciardo alongside Lando Norris. I mean, that would have been nirvana. So it went away. And he won that race, just to repeat the point, because he effectively ran a one-stop strategy to the two stoppers of the two McLarens. Yeah, it wasn't really, because obviously Max came in on lap 7. But as I said, that's a safety car pit stop. That is a free pit stop. So it was all starting from 0 when the safety car went in, lap 10. And all of a sudden, on the contrary to what McLaren was saying, the others had lost their flexibility. Indeed, I think Max had more flexibility at that point because he's on a new set of tyres. Anyway, that was the way this Grand Prix won. I don't think anybody could have predicted that had a safety car come in early on like that the two McLarens would stay out. I mean, I still can't believe they did that. I still can't understand any of the logic behind doing that when it's a free gift. Virtual safety car, completely different situation. But a safety car? Of course, once the safety car went in, both McLarens disappeared into the distance, but let them do it. Max knew that as soon as they stopped, and he knew exactly when they were going to have to stop, and they stopped right on the button, Max was going to take the lead. And from then on, he was basically in control of the race. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Beautiful drive by Max Verstappen. As I say, all about time management, all about being aggressive at the right moment. Made a very good start. Don't forget, Lando was P2, was on the dirty side of the grid. Max was on the clean side, got a good start. He was alongside Lando going into turn 1, and just sort of with body language, let Lando know, don't even think about trying to keep the inside line. I'm going to take the racing line, and Bob's your uncle. And he was away in front of Lando Norris. Lando lost P2 right at the first corner. Oscar Piastri looked good. I felt sorry for him in many ways, because had McLaren made the right call, which was obviously, and they say, oh, well, in hindsight now it's easy to say, but it wasn't hindsight. I think everybody, probably all the spectators at the Lusail circuit, were saying, why aren't the McLarens coming in like everybody else? It wasn't a hindsight thing, it was a reality thing. Anyway, had they done the correct thing, that's probably the best way of phrasing it, and brought Oscar and Lando in for new tyres, for a new set of mediums, then I think it would have been a McLaren 1-2. It would have been difficult for Max. He might have got Lando, who knows, but he certainly wouldn't have got Oscar. As I was saying yesterday, that's how I thought the race would pan out. So complete and utter shock in many ways that McLaren could botch this up so badly. And I still think it's a function of running two equally quick drivers. As I've been saying for I don't know how long now, had they kept Daniel Ricciardo alongside Lando Norris, I think Lando would have won the World Championship by now. And that's not to say that Oscar's taken points from Lando. It's the way they run the team. It's the calls they make. And we had two shining examples of that tonight in Qatar. And you got Max Verstappen making them look as if they are just beginners, really. And Red Bull, obviously got to throw Red Bull in there. Great job by them. Absolutely crystal clear in all their decision-making. Very decisive in everything they did. Very decisive in the way they controlled Max's time management. Slight difference in handling from one side, from left-handers to right-handers, things like that. But fairly typical, but they sorted out very, very quickly. and they got rid of the bouncing, obviously, after the sprint race as well, without damaging too much the downforce of the car. So just an outstanding job. If you think of where Red Bull were at the end of the sprint race, or even after the sprint qualifying, and how unsettled Max was with the feel of the car, to where they were in the last half of the Qatar Grand Prix on the Sunday night. Just incredible turnaround by the team. And Max obviously totally up for it in every respect. So, yeah, just an amazing win. And into third place, Carlos Sainz, absolutely brilliant for Williams-Mercedes, helped by the traffic jam in the pit lane, obviously, when the safety car came out and everybody except McLaren came in. And in the case of Mercedes, there was a stacking process there between Kimi Antonelli, whose stop was a little bit slow, and then George Russell, and everybody lost positions there, obviously Ferraris, but that were no Lewis stacked up behind Leclerc. That was no problem for Carlos, and he came out and inherited places as a result of that and held the position all the way to the end. Absolutely superb drive, making you wonder yet again why he was sacked by Ferrari, although from Carlos's point of view, he's probably thinking, I'm so glad I'm driving this car and not that heap of whatever expletive deletive of Ferrari. Charles Leclerc, for the record, finished 8th in this Grand Prix. Absolutely amazing that he even scored points in it, I think. Remember yesterday he had to use all these soft tyres to get out of Q2, had a massive lose in Q3, started 10th, and the car was just undrivable as far as we could see from the onboards from Charles. Just ridiculous. And whereas George Russell, he got boxed in at the start behind and ended up behind Fernando Alonso, eventually got Fernando. Charles was unable to get Fernando in the Aston Martins. And with Lewis starting on softs and finishing only 12th, it just shows yet again the job Charles Leclerc did in that Ferrari. Outstanding work for him. Felt sorry for Isaac Hadjar, who got a puncture right at the end. He'd driven brilliantly as well, I thought, in the Racing Bulls. Unlucky day for him. No virtual safety car, nothing at the end. Bit of debris on track, sparks flying out of the back of the Racing Bulls. But Isaac, really just a bad luck story for him right at the end. The only real tyre drama we saw all day in a race where obviously Pirelli were going in feeling a little bit nervous, which is why they had that 25 lap limit on all sets of tyres throughout the weekend. And the other hard luck story, of course, was Nico Hülkenberg, who started on the softs, was going very well, as I said earlier, and was doing a nice outside pass of Pierre Gasly at turn 1, and then Pierre just ran wide, probably went a little bit too quickly, and the two touched, and Nico thereafter was out, although Pierre kept going. 9th, Liam Lawson. 10, Yuki Tsunoda. Well, we shouldn't forget Yuki out-qualified him for the sprint qualifying. Alex Albon, 11th in the other Williams, and Lewis Hamilton got up to 12th from wherever he was, 15th. He started him on softs. He made a bit of progress early on and finished 12th, but not a great day again, obviously, for Lewis Hamilton. But this will be the day remembered, well, jointly, obviously, for the quality of Max's drive and the management of Red Bull, the consistency, the stability under pressure, the ability to run the car absolutely perfectly, even though it wasn't a perfect car. And the incredible mistake made by McLaren-Mercedes to allow Red Bull then to go ahead and win that Grand Prix and take the World Championship with lots of momentum to Abu Dhabi. I suppose fans, the community of Formula One worldwide, will be saying, yeah, bring it on, bring it on. But if you're McLaren right now, you must have a feeling, if you're Lando Norris particularly, because he could actually have won the championship today if things had gone in his favour. But he didn't, obviously. And not only do things not go in favour of McLaren, but they actually made it worse by making one of the most ridiculous strategy calls ever, really, given under pressure. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, lots to talk about. We'll be doing a live stream this week. There'll be lots to think about. We'll be chatting to Mark Slade about this as well. I'm sure he'll have his own input. In the meantime, just want to have a quick word about REC watches. You can get to their website in the small print in the description below this video, just to highlight 2 of their latest creations. Beautiful watches. One of them based on the DNA from the actual Mustang driven by Steve McQueen in the amazing movie Bullet. That's got to be a collector's item. And the other celebrates the success of a specific Datsun 240Z or 240Z driven by John Morton at the beginning of the 1970s to dominate C production racing in the United States and put Datsun and in effect the whole Japanese car industry on the map in the United States, with its hour and minute hands reforged from the car's distinctive yellow exhaust. Only Peter Brock could have come up with that one, the yellow exhaust, that is. So great timepieces. You can pre-order those now, and don't forget to use your additional code PETER as well. Big thanks to RSE Watchers for their support of this channel. Likewise, big thanks to Jetcraft, to Track Ninja, and to OEM Exclusive. To you, the viewer, for watching. As I say, we'll be back with a live stream this week. See you then.